Hey, what's up everybody? I'm here, just want to discuss a few things about what's been going on, the update. Basically, I'm done with my 40-day fast. Thankfully everything went good. I mean, some of the things didn't go smooth, which is what I'm gonna talk about, but overall the experience was just an amazing experience. I already started refeeding just because wasn't able to get it on camera or like capture the whole moment, because it was very intense and I just really didn't have the energy, as I'll go on and talk about. But basically what I've been doing is I've been drinking juices, which is this one, which is basically a green juice, about 3/4 green juice with about 1/4 of hemp milk, and it's got just so many minerals and vitamins, and it's got carbs in there, proteins, fats. I kind of just try to emulate, in a way, I know it's kind of impossible, but like mother's milk, or try to get something close to formulate something close to where I was getting a lot of intake of vitamins, good fats, proteins, and carbohydrates, and also the probiotics that I have in there, and just all that, and try to just nutrify my system and just bring me back to life in a way, and it's been working very well. Other than that, I have been, eating small amounts of fruit, every couple hours. I haven't really been trying to overdo it, but I've just been trying to stay consistent with the juices and the fruits and stuff. But it's been working out pretty good so far, and I've still been doing enemas because I've been having so much stuff come out, and I have been a bit constipated, but I think that's something that happens to everybody. If you do like a long extended fast, it takes a while for your system to start, get things up and running again, to where you're going to the restroom and it's just pushing stuff out. But right now it's still pushing out a lot of toxins and a lot of mucus. I've seen worms, just nasty stuff. So let me back up a little bit and talk a little bit about how it went. So what I did around day 25, I started doing saltwater flushing, which is basically I was doing 2 teaspoons of salt dissolved in 32 ounces of water, of warm water, and then I would chug that, and that would produce a bowel movement. They theorize, or people I've read on the internet, that it's not being able to get absorbed into your body, so it just kind of rushes through your intestinal tract and just kind of sweeping through and cleaning things out. And it did work for me. I would have bowel movements and it would just be mucusy and stuff coming out. From like day 25, I did it for about a week, and consistently it would produce the same effect. So then I went up to the mountains for a couple days, and that was one of the better parts of my experience, just being away from all the stimulation, all the Wi-Fi signals, all the pollution, all the things of society, the distractions, all those things, and just having the quiet peace and solitude of being in nature and just embracing that whole situation. That was probably the best part of my experience. I was able to read. I read like 2 books in like 3 days, and it was just so like uplifting to be out there. And I wish I could have had the experience and opportunity to be out there the whole time, but I'm thankful that I can do it here, because that can show you guys that it can also be done in the city, even in a toxic environment, even if it's not the best place. But if that's your only option, and you don't have the money to go to a retreat, you don't have the money to go out in nature, you don't have the resources or whatever, you still can do it wherever you're at. That's what I want to share with people. I'm not telling you to do it, but I've done it, in this environment, and I live probably in one of the most toxic environments, in just the area that I live at. People are so low consciousness, I'm not judging them, but it's just a situation. Like, people are smoking, like smoke getting into my apartment like every day. People out here just not conscious about their health at all, they're just eating whatever they want. You got liquor stores and drug users and sellers all over this area. So I'm telling you, if I can do it where I'm coming from, you could do it where you're at. And that's one of the things that I like about fasting, is that it's universal, and that it can be done by anybody, anywhere, and it's free. You know, you could go to a fasting center and that's the most optimal thing where they're monitoring you, checking you. You got experts who've been doing that with lots of people. But if you don't have the opportunity, you don't have the resources, and you're really sick, I don't want to tell people that that's it, it's over for them, because you still have the chance to heal yourself. And there's things you can do that are free, you know, that you don't have to pay for, that are really going to take you and heal you, you know, your body, restore a lot of its vital health, you know. So basically, you know, after I came down out into the mountain, you know, I think like the last 10 days was the hardest on me. It was just, I was kind of over it. I was starting to lose like strength, and I was just being back in the city. I think I really felt the contrast of being out in nature and coming back to the city for the last couple of days. It was hard on me, and I just wanted it to be over. And hopefully the next fast I do, like, I'm able to be most of the time in nature, or I have myself set up for that situation or something in that nature. So, you know, and then so yeah, I was going, I did a couple more saltwater flushes. I wasn't really doing enemas as much, which probably was contributing to my, you know, the fact that I was feeling weak. So I was circulating a lot of those toxins again back in my bloodstream. I wasn't, you know, getting things moving and pushing things through. And, you know, just also, you know, my reserves were starting to get depleted, you know, getting into the last couple of days of the 40-day water fast. But it was a wonderful experience. So, okay, so on day 40, you know, I decided to rev things up, and I just said it was my last day. I'm gonna really go hard on it. So what I did is I started day off with a 32-ounce glass of water, which I jam-packed with about 40 or 50 capsules of plant-based enzymes to go and start breaking things down in there, and just, you know, start loosening things up. So when I start eating or things start going through there, I just start pushing stuff out, you know. And since my digestive system was not really up and running, it would go right through and start, you know, dissolving inside of the actual intestinal tract. So I did that, did a big therapeutic dose of enzymes in the morning. After that, I did a saltwater flush a couple hours later. And then at night is when I first got my first like real intake of calories, which was 8 ounces of olive oil and 8 ounces of grapefruit juice that I had squeezed fresh off of two grapefruits that I bought at the farmer's market. So I shook that up, mixed that up, and that's the liver and gallbladder flush. So I was late at night, and I just shook that up, you know, drank it all. And at first, you know, it wasn't too bad. I just didn't think nothing of it. I was like, it kind of felt good to get some calories. Like, felt my body, you know, like just uptaking it. But oh boy, the next day I was so nauseous. I don't know if I've had nausea that bad. I was just feeling so weak. I slept for like 18-20 hours, I swear. For a long time I just kept sleeping and sleeping because I didn't want to be awake, because I didn't even want to think about food. I didn't want to drink water. I didn't want to do anything. And what was happening is the toxins that got released from that flush, it just spasmed the gallbladder, and it just started shooting out all the toxic stuff. So it was just affecting me so bad, because I was getting all those toxins inside of my system, and, you know, they weren't getting let out. They were just being recirculating into my bloodstream, and they were just sitting there, and it was just doing so much work. It was like a major surgery. I swear, really, I have not experienced something like that bad. Like, I've had pretty bad experiences with liver flushing as far as detoxing, but coming straight off of a fast and doing that was really, really intense, and I really don't recommend it. Like, even though I feel a lot better now because I got all that stuff out of me, it just took a lot out of me just to hang in there. I felt like I was dying, really. I felt really, really nauseous and really bad. But then I started doing enemas, and just the whole day, I swear, I was just in the restroom doing enemas. I felt like throwing up. I didn't get to that point. I probably should have thrown up and just got some stuff out there, but I just kept holding it in, kept burping and stuff. But I just kept doing enemas, and boy, you should have seen the stuff that came out. It was some gnarly, dark stuff, all kinds of shapes and sizes, and just some putrefied proteins and calcified stones and mucus, and, you know, all kinds of stuff was just coming out of me. And I started feeling better and better. The more enemas I did, I started cleansing out more. You know, I just kept drinking water. And then the next day, you know, I felt better. I woke up, I was feeling pretty good. And then that's when I started doing the juices, and you know, it felt good. You know, I started feeling better. And I'm just continually, I feel like I'm regaining my strength and I'm regaining my vitality, and I feel a lot better now. But I'm just so thankful that I got all that stuff out. You know, sometimes you have to go through a hard process and a hard time, but in the end it's worth it, because you know, you're just so happy to see the stuff that's out of you, you know. And I'm still doing enemas today. I've done a couple enemas, and still stuff just keep coming and coming out. But as I'm eating, I'm trying to eat, like, I'm eating small amount of fruits, you know, fiber too, so that I can you know, start pushing the stuff out, because stuff is still coming out, you know. As I'm using the restroom and doing enemas, I'm still having bowel movements with nasty stuff in them. But it's just another process. The whole refeeding process really shouldn't be taken lightly. Like, really, like, stuff it's so different, vastly different. Like, you really get to smell and taste your food like never before. Like, I was eating an apple and I swear I could smell like latex on it or something. It was an organic apple, but I could just smell something on it, and it's just crazy to me how, you know, before I'd never noticed things like that, but right now I'm so sensitive. Like, everything I'm drinking and eating is going in my mouth is like getting super analyzed by my whole system, and just, you know, my olfactory, you know, the smell is just super, you know, precise. And you know, the taste, everything tastes so sweet. I can't eat stuff that's too sweet right now. It's just too much for me. Like, my taste buds are way too sensitive right now, so I'm trying to stay, you know, do more greens and more, you know, juices, and not too sweet. Like, I don't want to overburden my system with too much sweetness at the moment, so I'm just trying to, you know, balance that out, and then just, you know, get also a good balance of fiber going, so I can start cleansing out my digestive system. But I also been taking started taking herbs, you know, for parasites and liver and all kinds of herbs, stuff that's just going to get absorbed right now. That, you know, my digestive system's going to start to rev up, and you know, I'm going to get better absorption because I've been cleaning out a lot. So I want to take that opportunity so I can use those herbs optimally and just keep cleansing, because really right now the process of refeeding is more than just eating again. I'm really still cleansing. Like, a lot of cleansing is getting done, you know, in the time after on the refeeding process, really when you see a lot of cleansing, and you know, you're gonna see you're gonna see stuff that you're pushing out, and that's gonna make a big difference on your body and how you're feeling. And so it's just it's a long process still, even after you break your fast. You know, you have to be very smart about these things. You can't just go and eat anything in any quantity that you want. You really should be taking the time to, like, be optimal, the most optimal that you can, so you can take advantage of the fact that you know, you're cleaning yourself out, and that your absorption is better, and that, you know, just to introduce new, better habits. You know, if you want to stop eating so much sugar, you know, you might want to take this opportunity to reduce your sugar intake. Since you are more sensitive, you know, just don't eat any more sugar than you want to eat. That way, you know, you'll stay at that level. Because if you start introducing, of course, you can start getting more and more into the sugar part of it. But really, you know, you can stay somewhere at a level where it never gets out of hand, you know, and you have more control of it from this point, you know. So it's a good opportunity for things like that too. But just my whole experience has been, you know, super magical. I'm super grateful of having everything that I have, you know, and of being in the situation that I am. Like, I don't really, most people would think that I don't really have much, you know, like as far as physical possessions and things, I really try to detach myself from all that kind of materialistic, you know, things. But I have just the essential things that I need, essential tools. And you know, I'm so grateful for all those things. And that's one of the things that I've been doing in the practice that I picked up while fasting, is just waking up and, you know, trying to recall like 5 things that I'm grateful for, and just trying to build that, you know, build that habit of being grateful for things. You know, every day goes by and, you know, we don't express that gratitude. And I think part of that, of what makes us, you know, happy and healthy and have longevity, is that gratefulness towards what we have, you know, just being grateful for everything and thanking every time we eat, you know, just being real, you know, mindful of everything that we have, and also, you know, just breathing in at least a couple times a day and just coming back to the moment, you know, being in the moment. That kind of reminds you to be in the moment, and if you do that a couple times every day, you know, you'll build up a practice where you'll be living more consistently in the moment rather than having days and days go by where you're just frantically, you know, running around and never really being in the moment at all. So those are a few little things that I've learned to incorporate into my daily life, you know, because of this fast, you know. And it's not my first fast, either extended fast. It has been my first 40-day fast, but I don't think it'll be my last. I kind of want to pursue this as more of a lifestyle, even if it is for just spiritual. Even though I know I still got a lot of cleansing to do. And if you think you don't, really, you're just fooling yourself, you know. Because I still have stuff coming out. I've been doing a lot of cleansing. We live in a toxic world, you know. It's just the reality of it, you know. It sucks, yes. You know, it seems extreme. People think it's extreme. Yeah, it is extreme, but also the world that we live in is extreme. People are eating stuff they're never ever in a million years supposed to be eating on a daily basis, 3 times a day, getting stuck to their 22 feet of intestinal wall, never getting cleansed, never eating any vitamins or minerals, barely getting by on iceberg lettuce from hamburgers, somehow surviving, you know, eating bread, sticky, cooked pasta, all that carbohydrates, excessive feeding of, you know, parasites and candida and so many factors, you know, pollution, 80,000 chemicals introduced to the environment. You got toxic stimulants, you know, estrogen in plastics, you know, BPA, you know, just modified foods, genetically modified foods, chemtrails, so many things wrong that we're doing wrong. I wouldn't say wrong, it's just not serving us, you know, there's no right or wrong, it's just what does and what doesn't serve us, and at this moment, you know, those things aren't serving us, and you kind of gotta learn how to live in a world where these things are occurring and learn how to live in a symbiotic relationship with this toxic world, so where you thrive and you'll survive, you'll do more than survive, you'll thrive, you know, and you'll live a long, healthy, happy life, you know. And that's really what I'm trying to get to. I still have a lot of work to do, you know, and it's you know, I look forward to it. I'm not the type of person who try to find a pill, you know, and always had the intuition that it wasn't going to be like that, you know. You know, doctors had let me down, you know, like I would go in for something and they try to give me a pill, and, you know, I never had any faith in any of those pills, and I know that in order to fix yourself, you kind of have to pay back for the sins against nature, you know. You have to go back and do the work and cleanse yourself up, you know. It's not pretty, it's not fun all the time, but it's worth it, and it's really necessary if you want to thrive in this world nowadays, you know. But this, you know, this is just one little video that I wanted to do on what's going on with me, and I'm gonna keep doing videos. Now that I have more energy, I feel like really inspired, and I just want to share so much information with you guys. And I feel like I feel like things are working better, you know, now that I cleanse myself of a lot of these things, and I feel like I can share more information now, and I want to just become more open with the information and just really get in the groove of just providing consistent information, you know, on a daily basis, just practicing that and sharing things with people, because, you know, things are getting, you know, tough nowadays. You know, people are looking for information, and, you know, like, they should have a source for it. They should have to pay, you know, for information that should be free, you know, because we were never taught it in school, you know. But it's unfortunate, but now we have, you know, the internet, and, you know, we can keep spreading this type of information, and, you know, have a support community where people can be, you know, supportive of each other and going through things like this, and understanding, you know, sometimes it's the detox, you know. It's not that this food is bad for you, it's not that fruits and vegetables are bad for you, it's not that fasting is bad for you, it's, you know, what's living inside you doesn't like it when you do it, you know, and it fires back, you know. You gotta go through it, you know. You're not gonna get a free pass you already kind of enjoyed all the suffering and pain, all the karmic, you know, pain that comes with, you know, eating dead animal flesh and blood and all the gore of it. And it's just, you know, it is what it is, you know. And if you're willing to go through it and cleanse yourself, I think you can be on your way to becoming a happy, healthy, vital person and just healing yourself from all sorts of ailments and things. And just being generally, you know, improving the consciousness of the planet, which is ultimately what this is about. You know, this is a lot more than health, a lot more than looking young and living, you know, forever or having longevity. It's really about consciousness, because, you know, when you fast, you really realize who you are. You have to face yourself. You can't go anywhere. You can't jump to run to food. You can't start eating your feelings away, you know. You're forced to look inward and say, who am I? Like, why do I do the things that I do? Like, why do I treat people like that? Why do I respond in the ways that I respond? You know, like, what is my essence? And you start to develop a clear image of who you are. You start to brush away the layers and scrape away the layers of conditioning and programming, and you really just get deeply into yourself and figure out what it is that your purpose is, what you really are, your true essence of your infinite consciousness, which is what we all are. But you start to see it. It's one thing, you know, I see all these people who are quote unquote conscious, thinking that they know what their essence is, or, you know, really who they are, but they've never really experienced it. They don't have that experiential knowledge because, you know, they never fasted, never really got cleansed, they never really meditated. It's just like a trendy thing, and it's alright, you know. I mean, I'm not judging them. It's just when you really experience it and you really face yourself and you face your fears and all your ultimate fears and you dissolve them, you really become a different person. Like, it changes you, and it really opens up a whole new level of understanding, and you can really live more harmoniously with the planet and those around you, and just enjoy life more. You know, I still have a long way to go, like I said, but it's just I'm coming more and more to that understanding every single day. So, you know, if you vibe with anything that I'm saying, you know, about consciousness or diet, you know, because everything's correlated, like the body, the mind, you know, all the different bodies that we have, the ethereal body, you know, the mental body, and the, you know, the emotional body, it all coincides together. But if you vibe with anything that I'm saying, you know, I would welcome you to subscribe to my channel and just, you know, follow me on this journey, and so we can start, you know, a community, you know, of people who are trying to uplift the consciousness of the planet and are trying to do it, you know, on a realistic, you know, in a realistic way where you're changing yourself, because that's where it's going to start. You know, protesting isn't going to do anything. You know, going out and rioting isn't going to do anything. Doing all these other extra external things isn't going to do much unless you change your internal consciousness and your internal physical terrain, which is going to be linked. You know, it's a symbiotic relationship. If your body's not working well, if your gut's not working well, you know, your immune system's not working well, your body, you feel like you're dying, you feel like you're dead, you don't feel alive, you don't have no will to live. It's going to affect your spiritual health. You're not going to find consciousness easy to interpret, and you're just not going to be able to really see what is meant for you to see and realize what is meant for you to realize. So, you know, that's all I really wanted to talk about. You know, I'll keep more videos coming, and, you know, thank everybody for watching, everybody for just supporting me through this fast that I've been kind of documenting on Instagram. You know, I haven't been able to answer everybody, but I've been getting so much feedback, and people, you know, asking me questions, and I'll do more videos, more postings, and so yeah, just stay tuned, and thank you everybody for watching. See you guys later.